Thank you, Rick. That's beautiful. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So happy to see you all. So stand when you are able, and we will sing together our joy song, which is On the Ball.
Good morning again, everyone. Welcome.
Good morning.
Let's not forget to put our phones on meditation mode. Today we've got Amy Jo's going to inspire us. So is Maurita. And so is Chris Hale. So let's get started. We're going to sing the first hymn, number 26.
No, Amy did it first.
Reading first. Excuse me. Please give me another job. I'm donating my time and my talent.
Well, I'm so glad you did that too. I do it every time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. This is from the Daily Studies in Divine Science. From Proverbs chapter 13, verse 11. Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathereth by labor shall increase. So when I first read that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am working my butt off 13 hours a day at school. I think I should be making a little more than I am. But just listen. In his wisdom, Solomon proclaimed that there is a right way to receive, to use, and to enjoy wealth, and a wrong way. True wealth is a state of mind, an awareness of God's abundance ever with us. Wealth is divine and belongs to you as a child of God. However, wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished. Vanity is, spiritually speaking, a form of dishonesty. It seeks to possess without the mental equivalent, and for this reason, it lacks a proper foundation. You form the proper foundation for prosperity through right thinking, or by building within yourself the mental equivalent of what you desire. Solomon spoke of labor, which means not physical labor, but the work involved in building within yourself the right state of mind. Train yourself to look upon wealth as universal divine substance that is omnipresent. Like the air you breathe, it's universal and common to everyone. Divine substance is as available to you as the air. To realize divine substance, however, you must provide the right mental equivalent, just as you must breathe to partake of the air surrounding you. Affirm now with feeling, I open myself to true wealth, to divine substance, by thinking about it and being grateful for it. And that's from Vernon Shields.
That is so true, so perfect. It goes so well with our joy song, too. I'm just checking the program. Now we're going to sing hymn number 26, verses 1 and 2. Hark the herald angels
This morning, I would like to share with you some statements of truth that are in our selected Bible readings. God is the one perfect mind, all presence, all knowledge, all understanding. Spirit is the true substance of all things, invisible and visible. There is but one substance. The one substance, one mind, one life, are forever being expressed. Like produces like. Creation is like its creator. Jesus was the first conscious Son of God, perfect in his understanding of the one substance, the one mind, and the one life. But he was, quote, the firstborn among many brethren, unquote. Through the Christ within, God's only begotten Son, all are sons of God, and all shall know this, even as Jesus knew it. It's a powerful statement. All are sons of God, and all shall come to know this, even as Jesus knew it. We walk in his footsteps. We listen to his words. we try to live in the way that he demonstrated one should live. With kindness, with understanding, with knowledge, with peace, with healing, with truth. And certainly this is the time of year when perhaps we're called upon most to do that. To walk in the footsteps of the Master as we prepare for Advent, as we live through and welcome the celebration to come. Keep these words in mind. There is but one substance. That's with a capital S. And that is God expressing himself everywhere, in everyone, throughout all things. Shall we say our divine science statement of being you will find in your orders as such. God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am the individualized expression of God and am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. This is the second Sunday in Advent. And last week we lit the candle. How do you do this?
On the bottom.
On the bottom.
Click the button.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Can you see it?
We lit the candle of hope. And this week, we light the candle of peace. And this is that time during our service when we meditate, we get still, we celebrate what we are, individualized expressions of God. So shall we get still? Shall we close our eyes and take several deep breaths? And release tension in the body, the face, and the shoulders. And focus instead on our totality. We certainly feel our bodies, get hungry from time to time. Sometimes things hurt. We dress it and shave and put on makeup and take care of it in different ways, comb our hair. But let us move from the outside to the inside. Where there is what? Peace. For when we shut the mind off, when we turn off those incessant ideas that are flowing through our heads all the time, something like 50 to 75,000 thoughts a day, what we contact is a peace, a quietude. And as we go ever deeper within, as we begin to plumb our depths, we contact that dimension of ourselves that is the image of God. That eternal dimension that is a reflection, that is a perfect duplicate of the very essence of what God is. We are the image and likeness. And that image and likeness within us can certainly speak gently to us and through us. Can be that whispered idea when we think to ourselves, well, should I do this or should I do that? Should I take care of this first or something else should come first? In the minutiae of life, as well as in the life-changing decisions we sometimes have to make, that quiet voice is ever with us, ever present. For we are spiritual beings having a human experience. To remember this, to utilize this dimension of ourselves that is so powerful, so loving, so true, so peaceful and full of life itself. To utilize it is to be wise. is enlightened self-interest. We forget to listen. We forget to get still. I've got to get up and do this. Hurry up. Let's hurry up. When a treasure awaits us, if we but turn within, turn off the thoughts, and just be still. It is certainly in this state of mind, or mindlessness, that we can pray for others. We can know our own good coming forth, bubbling out of every dimension of our lives. As we still ourselves and contact that wisdom, gently these ideas just float into mind. How about this? How about that? And they're fruitful. There's something that you hadn't thought of before. How valuable it is to acknowledge this dimension of ourselves that has always been the truth of us, the inner us, the image of God. This day, in this frame of mind, we bless body, mind, and spirit, knowing that it is all good, all right action, all love, all truth. We hold in mind the people we love and the ones who love us, knowing the truth of them. They are spiritual beings having a human experience. And we enlarge the circle to friends, neighbors, workmates. And the circle grows larger still to those people in our neighborhood. We don't know really. We might raise a hand and say hello, but we don't know them. And people we pass on the street or drive past. To everyone whom we contact, we spread the circle farther and farther, and it doesn't get thinner, for it is truth and love. We spread it to this city, this county, this part of Virginia, to the whole state, to the whole country, our vast, wonderful country. We spread this blessing, this acknowledgement that each and all are spiritual beings having a human experience, oftentimes struggling with it, sometimes rejoicing in it, sometimes very heavy, sometimes very light, full of laughter. And the circle spreads even farther to all the countries of this tiny world that we live on. It's vast to us. In this universe, this incredibly large universe, it's hardly a flake of carbon floating around a third-grade sun, way off in the arm of one of the tens of thousands, perhaps millions of galaxies. So small, and yet so large, because we are the image and likeness of God. The image and likeness of God, spiritual beings, eternal spiritual beings, having a human experience. In the 90 seconds of silence we're going to have, spread that energy, that love, that truth of our identity. Spread it both near and far, and know that what we give out, we get back. What we sow, we reap. And this day, we sow abundantly and we reap abundantly, starting right now. Come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Oh, we've rested in that presence, in that wholeness, in the truth of our spiritual nature, our basic, eternal image of God spirituality. And in so doing, we have blessed ourselves and we have blessed the whole universe. And for this we say thank you. Beloved Father, Mother, friend, companion, protector, wise advisor, thank you. Amen. This morning, I'm going to, yes, we. Our Father, together, our Father, who is everywhere, your name is sacred, your kingdom is come, your will is throughout the universe. Give us throughout the universe. You give us our needful bread from day to day, and forgive us all our offenses, even as we forgive our offenders. And you let us not enter into materialism, but you separate us from error, because yours are the kingdom, the power, and the song and praise, from all ages, throughout all ages, sealed in faith, trust, and truth. Okay, this morning I'm going to be talking about the peace that passeth all understanding. And of course it comes right out of Paul's letter to the Colossians. And I'm reading from the Lands Translation. This is the 4th chapter, the 6th and 7th verses. Do not worry over things, but always by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. Well, the second Sunday in Advent, we celebrate peace. And that's something that everybody prizes. And there are many who greatly long for inner peace. Because there are countless people whose minds are filled with worry and anxiety, with fear, with what-if messages, or with alarm messages. And it goes on, constantly in their minds. But how fortunate we are, truly, to have learned in this church, and elsewhere, of course, that we have to listen carefully to our thoughts, because they can pass by so silently. No, we must listen carefully to them so we can begin to really hear what we're saying to ourselves. It's only in that way that we can begin to change the way we are thinking from any kind of negative or critical or fearful, anxious thoughts, and instead begin to remind ourselves of the good that is ours, the blessings that we have experienced, and the good that we are assured that God is going to provide, because He always has. As we look back at our lives, we can see it so clearly. How do we doubt that it's going to continue? How possibly? Mohandas Gandhi once said, "There is nothing that wastes the body like worry. And one who has any faith in God should be ashamed to worry about anything whatsoever." He hit the nail on the head, didn't he? He perhaps got us, poked us in the side a little bit. They're true words. But to so many people, the phrase, faith in God, is a beautiful phrase, beautiful words. But they don't have any feeling, they don't have any experience to make those words real to them. They're empty words. Faith in God. What does it mean? What does it mean? Faith isn't something that happens automatically in our minds and hearts. It isn't automatic. Unless, of course, you have some profound spiritual experience, then you get it. Get it times 1,000. But for most people, faith has to be built. It has to be built through effort and through experience and yet more experience. You get perhaps in some sticky situation and you might stop and say prayer to God. Please help me. Something simple. Largely believing that it's not going to change anything whatsoever, but you kind of do it. But things then don't turn out quite as badly as you expected they might. And then another crisis unfolds. And again, you expect the worst. You ask perhaps even more fervently for God's help. And with a lot of help on your part, and good hard work on your part, but a lot of unseen help from God, things turn out quite well. Now, if you're keeping track of things, if you're thinking about these things, if you remember how far things ended from the dire result that you thought would unfold, then faith, God's presence and God's positive power in the midst of life, only then does faith begin to be something real, something that you can rely on. Oh, even after quite a while, there can be just these little tiny doubts that linger in the back of your mind. But gradually, that disappears. And then you begin going into various situations, breathing a little prayer like, thank you, Father. Thank you, Mother God. Thank you for your help. I'm just expecting that better outcomes than seems possible at this moment, better outcomes are going to unfold. And they do, regularly. Finally, your faith becomes based on experience. God becomes your friend. God becomes your companion. Reliable. God is reliable. Far wiser than you, of course. So you know that, well, if things didn't turn out exactly the way I thought they should, your confidence in that infinite mind that knows all things, that it has brought about the very best solution. And time will prove that as things unfold, that they really are in divine order and always were, but you just didn't see it. When faith becomes solid, then peace of mind is a reality. It is part of all that you do and wherever you are. It becomes something that at first you kind of marvel at and cherish, and then after a while you kind of take it for granted. That peace of mind, it's going to work out all right. It's going to work out in divine order. And you begin actually expectantly thinking that, I wonder how God's going to work this out. Because he does, always. And no matter what happens, we do have this sense of peace and ease because we are certain that God is in charge. God does reign throughout this whole vast creation. In the 1970s, the Catholic Order of the Sacred Heart had a number of missionaries and missions in the northern Mississippi area that was a very, very poor section of the world, of our country certainly. They were there to help the poor, the sick, young children, and the elderly. The homes, the living conditions in which many of these people lived were deplorable. They were just wooden shacks, actually. But these people's efforts to improve their lives were consistent and they were admirable. Sister Mary had been contacted numerous times by one woman, kept coming back to her over and over again. Her mother's house needed a roof. The storms that year had been certainly more fierce than usual, and the rain comes down in torrents. That's the way Mississippi weather is. And they came down in large amounts in her mother's home. The kitchen floor was rotting from the rain that kept leaking through the roof. The electric stove in the kitchen had flamed out and shorted out. The wood-burning stove in the living room was the only source of heat they had, and now the food had to be cooked on that. The chimney had begun to crumble because of the water. Now, Sister Mary just could not co-sign alone with this caring and worried daughter. Then she suggested that the woman contact yet another bank. But that was a wasted effort. this woman just didn't qualify for a loan. She took substitute teaching whenever she could get it, and her mother did some babysitting for a few dollars, but there just wasn't the money there. The banks turned their back on her. The good sister and that family had no other option than to pray to God for help, which they should have started doing from the beginning, but that's they realized was the only option. But then, like a blaze of light, an answer came. A newly established housing fund had become available. Ask, and you shall receive. Sister Mary visited the home and asked the elderly lady if she could get an estimate of the cost of the repairs. And a reliable lumber company came up with an estimate. And when Sister Mary inquired about the available funds, a check was immediately sent for the needed amount. When she next visited the family, she'd seldom seen such joy and gratitude as when they all went out together and stood together and gazed at that new roof. There would indeed be peace and rejoicing in that home that Christmas. Sister Mary lived a life of service. Her faith had been honed over so many years of helping poor families and seeing virtual miracles unfold. But these poor families had long ago discovered the power of prayer, the power of faith, and their dependence on God. It consistently brought them a sense of inner peace and often the satisfaction of outer solutions. This morning, I apologize for being a Johnny one note. But I'd like to briefly return to something that I spoke about 2 weeks ago, Sunday. Now, if you weren't here 2 weeks ago, I urge you to go to our website and take a look at that sermon, because it had some good stuff in it. It didn't come from me, it came from somebody else, but it's good. 2 weeks ago, I spoke about Masaru Emoto's amazing pictures. And Mr. Emoto is a Japanese gentleman who really proved to the world, showed the world that words, as well as what we say, affects our world, everything in us and around us. Mr. Emoto developed the skill of freezing tap water and taking pictures of the crystals that water produced. Now, this man was Japanese. He came from Tokyo, and just ordinary water, Tokyo water, right from out of the tap, contains, as all water does, it goes through sanitation plants and so forth. It contained chlorine and other really fine impurities. And when it's frozen, it does not produce crystals. But if you take a jar of this water and put a label on it, like eternity, or truth, or happiness, or hope, or peace, and leave that label attached to the jar for several days, the water from that jar, frozen, produces the most beautiful crystals, crystal formations. And on the other hand, if the word that's glued to the side of, or attached to the side of the jar, is blasphemy, or despair, or war, it produces misshapen crystals. The impure water near a dam produced ugly crystals, but after a Buddhist priest chanted and prayed for an hour at the dam, the same water produced the most exquisite crystal. In so many words, Mr. Emoto demonstrated that either printed or spoken words or prayers affect the water in and around us. Now, I'm bringing up this subject because the human body is anywhere from 45 to 50% water. What if you took 5 minutes, or more if you can, 5 minutes at least, in the morning, and closed your eyes, took a couple of deep breaths, relaxed the body and the mind, and just said, peace. Just said peace to yourself, over and over and over again, for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, or 3 minutes even. Peace. Can't you imagine that that is doing something wonderful to your body and your mind? You know, I've been doing that, and I have found it to be so comforting and so helpful. I feel like I'm doing my body and mind a favor every morning. But going back to peace as regards Advent, the celebration of the birth of the greatest spiritual teacher the world has ever known, the most heartfelt, soulful way that we can anticipate and prepare for the Master's birth is to live in total inward and outward agreement with his words as found in John, the 14th chapter, 27th verse. He said, peace I leave with you. My own peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, and do not be afraid. Now, these words are preceded in a slightly earlier verse, in the 24th verse. They're preceded by this statement. The words which you hear is not my own, but the Father who sent me. So it is God himself who is saying to each one of us, every one of you, I have given you the gift of peace. Do not let the world take that peace away from you. No matter the appearance, no matter how things look, trust me. Do not be afraid. When we can trust God, when we live with even the tiniest kernel of faith, of belief, we will start living with incrementally larger and larger blessings, the incomparable blessing of inner peace. We will bring peace wherever we go, into whatever we're doing. What better way to celebrate the coming birth of the Master of Life? I'd like to finish today by sharing the prayer of St. Francis with you. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hate, may I bring love. Where there is offense, may I bring pardon. May I bring union in places of discord. Truth replacing error. Faith where once there was doubt. Hope for despair. Light where there was darkness. Joy to replace sadness. Make me not to so crave to be loved as to love. Help me to learn that in giving I may receive. In forgetting self, I will find life eternal. Shall we go with him for a moment? And experience peace. Do not be afraid. No matter how it looks, do not be afraid. And let yourself be filled with peace. Amen.
That was beautiful, everyone. It's now time in our service to give back. And I'm going to send a prayer basket around. There are names in here of people who've asked us to intercede with them. So you'll be blessed if you help them. I'm going to send this around. Then you'll find the blessing of the gifts in your order of service if you'll say it with me. Today, I acknowledge God, omnipresent, and source of all good, as the source of my good. With this acknowledgement, I accept His will, which is abundance in every aspect of my life. I release all thoughts of lack and limitation, and I am open and receptive to the increased flow of abundance to me right now. I joyfully accept the gifts of life and give freely of the special gift that I am. Through me, God omnipresent, blesses and multiplies this gift for all. Thank you, dear God.
Good morning. Okay, lots of announcements this morning. Sit back. First off, everybody that came out to the Christmas party dinner last night, I think everybody had a good time, so thank you for coming out. We decided to have a dinner out instead of cooking and cleaning up. Some of us were a little tired of doing that every week, so we thought we'd do something different, let somebody else clean up. So I think everybody had a good time. So anyhow, thanks for coming out and having a good time with us last night. Tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock, we have our board meeting here at the annex. So if you're interested in coming to the board meeting, it'll be at 4 o'clock. Christmas cards, we've had, usually we have a box and that people can put Christmas cards in. We're doing that again this year. But also, we've had a suggestion that if you want to send just one card to the church, you can do that and donate money that you would spend for postage or other cards. You can do that. So you have options, or you can send them in the mail, whatever. You've got all kinds of options, but we'll have the box out next week. I couldn't find it this morning, so I may have to make another one. But those are available for people that want to send cards. And when we do have a box out, I ask that you check the box every week that you're here, because sometimes I've got cards back there from last year that people didn't pick up. So anyhow, we try to make sure everybody gets them, but if people haven't been here, kind of hard to do. We're still collecting through next Sunday food and gloves and hats and so forth for the food pantry for MCC Church. I'll be taking them hopefully next Sunday after church, but appreciate everything that everybody's already given. We're still collecting, like I said, through this week and through next Sunday. If you prefer to give some money to that cause, we can do that also. I can take the money to them, or I can go, if you want me to go, I can go buy food if you want to give me a donation. Whatever works for you all. So I do appreciate all that everybody's given, and they really do appreciate the fact that you've helped or helping them out. And speaking of MCC, Kathy and Mo, as you know, sing here quite often, and they're giving a Christmas concert at their church at 6 o'clock on Saturday, December 21st. So we'll try to get a group together to go to that. So I'll be talking about that again next week. Christmas Eve service, and we'll be passing this on as next week or so. We'll be at 4 o'clock. We voted last year to have it early in the afternoon. And after that, we'll try to go to dinner. Probably it would be Tuesdays. It's one of the places that's open late on Christmas Eve. So we'll be trying to get a list of people that want to go to do that. Nancy's going to be starting a principal's class in January. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, there's a sign-up sheet in the annex, and it's the Fundamentals of Divine Science class, and it'll be 10 weeks starting on January the 13th on Monday nights at 6:30. And so there's a sign-up sheet. If you haven't ever taken the class before, I'll need to get the printed lessons to you. So go ahead and sign up, and then I'll get them to you, a couple of weeks before the class starts. And you also need the Divine Science Principle and Practice book. So it should be exciting and interesting, so I invite everybody to come.
And even if you've taken it before, feel free to take it again because each class is different. So anyhow, see Nancy about that and sign up for it.
What time again, Nancy?
6:30.
3.
Okay, we will have a congregational meeting on December the 29th, right after the service. This Tuesday night journaling class, still 6:30. And Thursday night, we kind of switched things around. We did crafts last week instead of a movie. And speaking of crafts, we have the little things that we made for sale. And we had fun and burned our fingers, but anyhow, we had a good time. And so there are little candy sleigh things, and if you would like to buy one, they're $5. And so you're getting a good bargain there because you got a lot more than $5 worth of candy on that. But we did have a good time. So if you want to buy them, there's like 9 left in there, so feel free to, we'll take your money. Thursday night, we're going to have a movie. We don't know what it'll be yet. We've been watching this series called, what's it called? Connections. So we may do that again this week. It's very interesting, so that's also at 6:30. We also have a sign-up sheet in the annex for next year's flower calendar and next year's birthday Sundays. So feel free to sign up for those. We appreciate all the people that have sponsored flowers and sponsored birthday cakes because it's been very nice to have somebody else bake a cake once a month instead of just a couple of people doing them all the time. So let's see what else. I think flowers this week are sponsored by Maurita, and it said for Mark, Lori, and Scott. So they're very beautiful. So they did a really great job. The lady that does our flowers does a great job. They're $20. You can't. And they're delivered. You can't beat that. So try to sponsor some for next year, and we appreciate it. Did you have anything? Your near-death experience, is that going to be next Friday?
Yes. Actually, we're having our IONS meeting on Friday at 7 o'clock, and we have an experiencer who is going to be talking about how near-death, it was an early near-death experience, how it affected the rest of his life. And it definitely affected it, and in the most interesting way. So I invite you to come at 7 o'clock Friday.
Yes, ma'am.
Tomorrow evening at South Roanoke United Methodist Church, the Messiah is being presented. If you have, I'm sure you've heard it in the past, but they do a wonderful job there, and it's free.
At what time?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay, cool. We like to know about these things because sometimes we hear about them afterwards, and it's like we don't know. So that's great, and especially if it's free, it's even better.
It is free.
All right.
It is free.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday we went to First Baptist Church and we did the city Christmas program. It is outstanding. Never been at new facility. It's great. It was a 2.5-hour program, and they did almost every Christmas song I've ever heard.
Okay.
It's very good.
It's still going on?
And it's at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and it's free.
Okay. All right. Cool. There's another free thing. Okay.
My aide went to that, and she enjoyed herself thoroughly.
Well, good. All right. Anybody else got anything? All right. Let's sing a hymn.
We're going to sing it out today with hymn number 29, "O Come All Ye Faithful." 1, 2, and 3.
in a circle for a final blessing.
There you go.
We are hand in hand. We are a community. We're a community of believers that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Children of God, beloved of God, who should never have fear, for God is with us. Let peace reign within. Thank you, dear God, that it is so. Amen.
Amen.